Have you ever talked to someone who seemed completely normal? Their tone was calm, their words polite, and their behavior measured. They might have even come across as genuinely helpful, but once the conversation ended, you were left with a strange sense of unease. You couldn't quite explain it. Nothing clearly wrong had happened, yet something felt off, as if something invisible had gently pushed you, and you only noticed it once they were gone. And what's strange is, these people never look like the bad ones. Quite the opposite. Most of the time, they're well liked by everyone. But according to Carl Jung, this is exactly where the danger begins, because the real danger doesn't come from outbursts of anger or obvious hostility. The real danger hides behind silence, secrecy, and the appearance of good intentions. Jung says the most dangerous people are those who believe they are entirely good. They never think they make mistakes, they never admit to anger, and they never see themselves as unfair, because they refuse to acknowledge their darker side, and without even realizing it, that's exactly why they can do the most harm. In this video, we're going to examine Jung's deep warning, step by step, and by the end, you'll see much more clearly why you shouldn't trust certain people. Before you begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because when you subscribe and turn on notifications, you'll be the first to know about our new videos. If you're ready, let's begin. According to Jung, every person wears a mask to be accepted by the outside world. This mask is the face we show society. We appear respectful, hardworking, understanding. But that's just our visible side. Behind the mask, there's a completely different world. Jung called this hidden world the shadow. The shadow is made up of all the emotions and traits we've been suppressing since childhood. For example, we were told that showing anger was wrong, so we stayed quiet. When we were brave, we were punished, so we pulled back. When we cried, we were seen as weak, so we hid our feelings. Over time, we began to define ourselves only by our good traits. But those other sides we suppressed didn't just disappear, they stayed inside us. And that's where the real problem starts. Because when the shadow is suppressed, it doesn't vanish. It just sinks into the unconscious, but it doesn't stay silent there. It keeps affecting our reactions, our decisions, and our relationships with others. Sometimes we don't even understand why we're angry at someone, or why we sabotage ourselves. These are expressions of the shadow. According to Jung, the shadow is not evil, but if ignored, it becomes dangerous. Because every suppressed emotion eventually changes form. Suppressed anger can turn into passive aggression. Suppressed jealousy can come out as criticism. Suppressed fears can turn into chronic anxiety. And all of these things can harm both ourselves and the people around us. That's why Jung emphasized how important it is to recognize and face the shadow. Otherwise, a person unknowingly starts projecting their dark side onto others. They act as if the problem isn't with them. Everyone else is wrong. They're always right. And this leads to major conflicts in relationships. Worst of all, these people never realize the harm they cause. Now let's explore when and how this suppressed shadow begins to erupt, and how it silently transforms into behaviors we don't even notice. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They just hide. And according to Jung, those hidden feelings grow stronger over time. They build up inside, gain energy, and look for a way out. Because the human mind cannot bury what it refuses to see forever. Jung had a powerful quote about this. What is not made conscious will be experienced as fate. This means that if a person doesn't become aware of their inner darkness, they will face the same problems over and over again in life. Their relationships fall apart, they repeat the same mistakes, they remain stuck in the same pain. But they always look for the cause outside themselves. It's the boss, the partner, the family. But the real issue is their refusal to face the parts of themselves they've buried. One of the clearest signs of this is when a person gives irrational or extreme reactions. Sometimes a tiny event triggers a huge outburst. Sometimes a simple situation brings back a deep, buried wound. Think of someone who suddenly cuts off a close friend after a minor disagreement. From the outside, it seems like an overreaction, but underneath, that moment echoed years of unresolved rejection. Maybe as a child, they felt unheard or abandoned. And now, even the smallest sign of criticism feels unbearable. They don't understand why they're so hurt. They just know they need to run. So they sabotage something, walk away from a relationship, or destroy an opportunity with their own hands. These aren't just random decisions. These are the shadow, silently pushing from below. The shadow doesn't just appear in emotions. It shows up in behaviors too. A person might seem calm and patient on the outside, but carry deep anger within. And that anger doesn't come out directly. It shows up through little jabs, passive-aggressive comments, or sarcastic remarks. Sometimes it hides behind phrases like, "I'm saying this for your own good." These people often have very little self-awareness. They don't know why they feel uneasy. They don't understand why their relationships are falling apart. They can't explain why they constantly feel inadequate, but inside they're in conflict. What others see and what they feel are not the same. And the more that gap grows, the more exhausted they become inside. According to Jung, at this point a person either breaks down or wakes up. They either accept their shadow and begin to face it, or push it even deeper and find themselves in a more complicated life. And this is where Jung's main warning comes in. The greatest danger comes from those who completely reject facing their shadow. Now, let's take a closer look at the type of person Jung especially warned us about. One of the key points Jung emphasized was about people who never face their shadow but still see themselves as entirely good. These people often appear kind, helpful, moral, or virtuous. Most of the time, they even truly believe that they are. But the danger comes from this very belief. Because when someone defines themselves as entirely good, they lose the ability to see their own flaws. They don't control their anger, they deny it. They don't accept their jealousy, they blame others. They mask their need for control as protection. And the worst part is, they keep causing harm without realizing it. These people try to fix others while ignoring the parts of themselves they've suppressed. When they criticize someone, they're unknowingly describing their own darkness. But they'll never admit it, because they don't think such a thing exists within them. To them, the problem is always outside. According to Jung, this is a form of spiritual blindness, and it distances a person from both themselves and those around them, because no one can be right all the time or good all the time. We all have a shadow, but some people deny this truth. And that's when the shadow becomes its most dangerous form. These kinds of people often use the same phrases in relationships. "I'm doing this for your own good." "I've always been patient." "I'm not a bad person, but..." These sentences shift the blame while keeping themselves clean. They carry manipulation, judgment, and hidden anger. The people who cause the most harm are often the ones who seem the most innocent, because they don't just defend their actions, they defend the identity they believe in. And that makes facing the shadow nearly impossible. Instead of acknowledging their inner darkness, they spend their lives projecting it onto others. Now let's bring all these pieces together. These people who deny their shadow believe they are flawless and don't realize the harm they cause. What truly sets them apart? According to Jung, this is where the real danger begins. Jung believed that the most dangerous quality a person can have is the total denial of their shadow. When someone says, "I could never hurt anyone," or "I'm not capable of anything bad," they become blind to their own behavior. Because if you see no darkness in yourself, you won't recognize it when it takes over. These people don't recognize anger, yet they act harsh. They deny jealousy, yet they constantly compare. They don't think they're controlling, yet they try to direct everything. And while doing all this, they still see themselves as right, good, and fair. That's what makes them dangerous, because they cause harm without realizing it, and they never take responsibility for it. Jung called these people spiritually divided. There's a large gap between the image they show and the reality they live inside, and the wider that gap becomes, the more tension they feel. That tension leads to emotional explosions, manipulative behavior, and broken relationships. But above all, it destroys trust. Because someone who hasn't faced their shadow can't be truly transparent. You never know what they'll do next. Since they don't know themselves, their reactions become unpredictable, and in human relationships, this creates a dangerous kind of uncertainty. So, next time you meet someone who always insists they're right, never admits mistakes, and constantly paints themselves as the good one, pause. Ask yourself, is this person truly good? Or are they just hiding their darkness and hurting others without even knowing it? Asking that question might just protect you from deep disappointment. If this message helped you reflect on yourself or someone you know, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to keep exploring the depths of the human mind, don't forget to subscribe to Mindful Sphere. Because the more we understand others, the more we truly begin to understand ourselves.